all for coming. Yay. So you can probably tell I'm not Mila. I'm Jonathan Katz. I've actually been helping to organize the meetup for way back. Unfortunately, we have Mila who's been doing a tremendous job leading it. Fortunately, she's not feeling well tonight. She asked me to fill in. I'm going to do my best to do everything she does, but it's been a while. So typically, the way we like to kick this off is personally, I like to get a better understanding of who comes to these meetups and what you're doing, what you're interested in Postgres. And this comes from back when we started the New York City Postgres user group in 2010, because nobody was using Postgres then. It was this academic project. It was in dark circles of the internet. And now it's everywhere. Now the conversations I have, I'm yeah, we have our enterprise Postgres adoption strategy. And to me, it's mind blowing. So what brought you here today? Are you using Postgres in production?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. How much are you using Postgres 18 in production? You should. How about 17, 16, 15? 17. Good. 17 is an awesome release. It's the accumulation of multiple years of work. I mean, all the releases are, but 17 is really good. 18 is really good too. Cool. So what do you want to learn from the user groups? What really helps us, get awesome speakers and awesome topics is understanding what you want to learn. So just shout out some ideas. Dude, we're in New York. No one's supposed to be shy. Just shout it out. Yes, Izzy.
So I would like some stories on, I did this, bad things happened, but this is how we fixed it.
Cool.
I would like to hear stories like that.
You want to learn? So you want to learn the life of a DBA.
Yeah.
Cool. What else? What other ideas?
How did you apply the AI?
How do you apply AI to Postgres? You're in luck for tonight because we're going to hear one of those talks. Cool. Other ideas?
Methodical performance analysis.
Methodical performance analysis. Awesome. We can do that. We have some performance experts even right here in New York. Cool. So now that I've seeded it, one area we also try to pull in all these topics is this conference we host in New York. I'm wearing the older version of the shirt, but we've renamed it from PGConf NYC to Postgres Summit US. This is basically the national Postgres conference. We have a date. We have a location. It's a little bit further downtown. It's in the Soho area. But the important thing about it, and what's really important for the New York community, is call for papers is open. We want to hear your stories. What makes this conference the best is exactly what Izzy was asking for. What did I use Postgres for? Maybe I had some challenge, I overcame it, or I'm using Postgres, it's awesome, there's this feature, it's going to change your life. Or any other story, you're working on a cool Postgres feature, you want to tell the world about it. So please submit talks. We really want to see the local representation. That just makes it so much better. Because in part, this helps grow the overall community. Side note, back when we first started this, if we had a room full of this size of people wanting to hear about Postgres, that was the record crowd. This seems to be the norm now. So thank you. It's really amazing to see how much love we have for Postgres now. So, which leads into general meetup organization. Again, it takes a village. Literally to continuously putting on meetups. We're always looking for new speakers, new topics. Overall, looking for people to help photograph the meetup. Take video, marketing. Marketing is important. Marketing is how we get we keep growing the community. But if you're interested, there's a QR code. I believe it will go to Mila, and we're always looking for new spaces and hosts. I don't have the announcement for where the next meetup is quite yet, but we will get that out soon, and I'm sure it'll be as awesome as this one. So the other important thing is that we can't do these meetups without our generous sponsors, such as sponsoring space, sponsoring food, and tonight Datadog is the sponsor. So I invite Terry up to give a brief talk about what Datadog is doing.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining the event today. I'm Terry and I sit on our Datadog for Startups program. And a little bit more about what the program can do for early stage startups is we give startups that are Series A and earlier a year free Datadog up to $100,000 in credits So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about our program and what it could do for early stage builders and scalers, make sure to check out our newly launched LinkedIn page. That will take you to our website and our application process where you can learn a little bit more about the eligibility requirements. So again, thank you so much for joining tonight's events, and if you have any questions about the Datadog for Startups program, I will be in this room, so feel free to come up and ask any questions. I'm going to hand it back to our host.
Thank you, Terry. So we're now going to do a speaker swap because you're not here to hear me talk all night. You want to hear what Fabiana Scala has to say. I want to give a quick story about Datadog while Fabiana gets set up. So Datadog was actually one of, I'd say, like the earlier, there's this term like digital native businesses. Okay, it's marketing speak, right? But they were one of the earlier adopters of Postgres, and like they were like very active in the New York community early on. Alexis, their CTO, even keynoting one of our early PgConf NYC conferences. But what like really helped in many ways, like people see Postgres as like a real production-ready enterprise database, was this blog post that Datadog put out. I want to call it like, I don't want to make up the year. Like let's call it like 2013. I'm probably wrong, but it was like how like we fixed one Postgres query and got like 100x better performance. And that blew up the internet. I see Peter Gagan, who's like a longtime Postgres committer, laughing back there. But like, it got a lot of people talking about Postgres, like for multiple reasons. Like, first off, like you need to know this like very specific knowledge to be able to like get this query to run 100x faster. But then it was also like, wait a second, like Datadog is running like their critical platform on top of Postgres. Oh, this is interesting. Like maybe we should try doing that. So it's been like great to see like the evolution of the Datadog tech stack here. And as I need to stall for, I guess, another minute, the other thing that happens as your company matures is that you can get a lot of databases. And it's not just Postgres, right? It could be, name a database. You can easily have that sprawl across your organization. And it can be hard to contain that sprawl. Like, you might not necessarily know what's in what database, who's using that database. Maybe you delete that database and you break, like, a ton of downstream dependencies. I've never done that before. But maybe there's ways to be able to make it easier to understand what's going on with that sprawl and like how you can reduce it and be more efficient. So Fabiana is going to talk a little bit about the lessons that she has learned tonight, and try to give you some helpful information around that. Is that enough stalling?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Fabiana, take it away. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't have any spyware on it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending the talk. This talk is quite exciting for me because it's my previous run of the talk that I'm going to give in PgConf next month already in Germany. So last year I spoke there with my peer. This time I'll be speaking again. So yeah, really excited to also be speaking at the conference. Cool. So let's get started. Maybe not. Okay. Cool. So yeah, welcome to Datadog. Hopefully you're familiar with Datadog beyond like how you managed to make it here into the Datadog HQ. So I'll keep it short. Datadog is helping a lot of engineers to bring all of their information about their infrastructure to a single place. Helps with observability, security, and a ton of different integrations, including, of course, Postgres integrations. And then, just like many companies nowadays, there is a huge emphasis on using AI, not only for our products, but then also internally. I'm not really here to talk about AI products. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just a platform engineer that is using our product and also working a lot with Postgres. So in terms of what we own, we support a bunch of these features, right? As Datadog started to exist many, many years ago, like 15 years ago, it has grown a lot. And a lot of this data that powers these features that many of us use is living in Postgres. And at the very beginning, this is what Postgres looked like. It was one gigantic database that slowly started to build and support more and more features. So at the very beginning, we were not really thinking about like optimizing. We just really wanted to be able to keep the company running. Whenever we were talking about Postgres, it's likely that we were trying to optimize something, and really what we were focused on was like being able to deliver, right? But it served us well for a long, long time until it didn't, right? Like we were scaling faster as a company, and we didn't really want to have all of our data across a gigantic database with over 300 tables. So 300 tables, hundreds of applications, and dozens of teams that are working on one single database is not sustainable, right? Like you can imagine having to do a schema migration and having to coordinate across all the different teams and being super careful and ensuring that our users don't notice anything. We also want to make sure that we have like best practices like least privilege. How can you have least privilege when you have so many different applications that are connecting to the same database with so many different features that it is supporting? So our Postgres experts for a long, long time were pretty overwhelmed with all of the different upkeep of just running a Postgres database. And the talk that I mentioned earlier that I gave last year was all about how we started to not only build a platform team to allow smaller databases to be brought up, but then also to break down this monolithic database. So usually what happens here at Datadog is, and many other companies too, is that whenever there's a problem that many teams are dealing with, we will try to have a platform team, such as like if you need to have a caching solution, if you want to build new APIs and all of that. So just like that, we also have a Postgres team that is dealing with the managed solution. So it's not only that we have all these different databases, but we also have a lot of different versions. And when I joined about 3 years ago, we were also running a very old version. And also, we ended up having a celebration so that we would see that like, yay, we're no longer supporting that version. And you can imagine that at the scale of Datadog, my team cannot do that, right? Like we should not be celebrating. Like we should not even know that that we're not in the oldest version. We should be able to just like have it happen, but it's not happening right now, right? Every major version upgrade that comes out every fall, it is a point of worry for us that we have to keep up to date. And I'm sure, you are all also running older versions. As an aside, it's giving me Java. I used to be a backend engineer working in Java, and we couldn't keep up with the Java updates. I have people that worked with me at previous companies here, and they know what it was like. So this meme is old, right? Like, it kind of seems like I now have to migrate it because 2.5 years later, we are up to version 25 and not 21. So yeah, cool, thank you, Postgres. And aside from all the versions, we also are working with different cloud providers. The different cloud providers, they all kind of have their own way of managing Postgres. They have a lot of inconsistency, enough inconsistency that we do have to codify that in all of our automation. The way that they're managing replications, for example, varies from place to place. So when we are building our automation, and maybe we're testing for one cloud provider, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for the other one. So this is something that also gives us some pain. And then lastly, our data center growth. Our data center growth is real. This is a press release from last year where we were able to introduce the Australia data center, and we can picture that in the future we want things to look like that. And I don't even need to know that the next data center is in Australia. I don't care. It should be any data center. I don't want to have to memorize all of these data centers. So in order to make Australia data center happen, there was a lot of coordination amongst many teams. We had to pretty much reverse engineer the way that we stood up a a database in a previous data center so that in the new one, we're able to execute a workflow and then generate it. And we were doing that over and over and over again. We were also putting our configuration in Git, and imagine every single time we're setting up a new data center, every single database has to end up in Git some way. So it was a lot of work, and if we wanted to get to this place, we definitely would not be able to make that happen at the pace that we were able to bring up Australia Data Center. So with more data centers, more databases, like the growth is great, right? But it comes at a cost. As the person that works on the Postgres team, I have way more ops to take care of, and then whenever we need to do a data center expansion, it's like, holy shit, like I don't want to do this. Like it's going to be really, really scary. So the burden keeps adding up, and we're unable to keep up. So definitely something needed to change. We have to press stop and then reset the expectations. Like, how can we make this better? I wish that it was as simple as you copy-paste a configuration. As I mentioned, there's differences across different cloud providers, different versions. And to be honest, like, we could be making the same mistakes that we made in previous data centers. We could be bringing on tech debt that we accumulated in the previous data center, because as we go on, we are improving things along the way with everything Postgres related. It's not going to, like, the qualities keep increasing as we keep going. So we cannot linearly scale and say copy paste is enough. We need to make sure that it costs even less. So this brings me to this slide, and this is from a talk that I attended at Staff Plus in New York this fall. And the speaker said, nothing ever changes until there is a crisis. And our crisis isn't necessarily an outage or like a system failure. It is really like our success, right? Like our growth is what's leading us to kind of have like that oh shit moment of being like, we cannot repeat the same mistakes that we made in the past when we're standing up a new data center. So yeah, sometimes growth is a crisis and we're forced to change. We definitely, as I mentioned, don't want to bring tech debt that we accumulated over the years from other data centers. So I try to be opportunistic around that. To go back to my team's mission, as a platform team, we want to make sure that all of the teams that work at Datadog that need Postgres can rely on us to have great reliability and observability and features and like an amazing developer experience where everything just works. And that also means that they don't have to deal with their database toil, not only when they're like doing their regular work, but then also when we need to expand. At least that's the bar that we are setting ourselves to. Are we actually meeting that? We'll see. So yeah, let's actually try to bring up that new data center. And in order to do that, we know we have to be automating things. We already got many ways to access Postgres. We have all these different versions. We got the different cloud providers. So definitely automating all of that is taking a lot of work. We looked at everything that happened in Australia, and we said, how do we take our automation further? What else do we need to simplify? So there's several key pieces on how, the things that we can simplify here. But today I'm really going to focus on one. And yeah, with all of this, like our team didn't really grow, by the way. Like it did, but like not like at the scale of like operating a whole another data center. So yeah. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the ways to access the database, but keep in mind that this is just like a very small piece of the puzzle. So the proxy layer. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, a combination of different ways in which we can access the database. We have been working for the last 3 years on our homegrown proxy, and we have presented on that in the past. So if you're interested in learning more about our homegrown proxy, we can just talk more about that. But yeah, so we're kind of building this golden path of our homegrown proxy, but we still kind of have to support all these other ones because it is the real ways in which our teams are accessing our different databases. And you can imagine that for us, it's like, I have to be an expert of the homegrown proxy, but then, do I really want to become an expert in PgBouncer too? And, am I going to onboard another teammate to learn everything about PgBouncer when, we're saying, yay, we have our own homegrown proxy? Not really. That's not really something that I want to do. So, about 2 years ago, the team had decided, we're going to get rid of PgBouncer. Our proxy, we really like it. We're going to keep investing on it. So let's make sure that we're deprecating PgBouncer and instead focus our efforts on our homegrown proxy. But the organic adoption of our homegrown proxy was going slower, right? Product teams that are trying to build their features don't want to get hit with yet another migration. So I completely understand why this would fall off the list of priorities. So we definitely needed to do something about it and actually commit to not bringing up the new data center with yet another way to access the database. So I went to an extreme and I decided to turn the deprecated PgBouncer to actual deprecated. Let's delete all of the code that we can use in order to stand up a new instance of PgBouncer, granting people access to PgBouncer, all of that I want it gone. Mind you, we're still running PgBouncer, but it's all of the old cases that are still migrating. It's nothing new. So yeah, this was kind of my big stance before we start, updating and creating a new data center. And, with every migration, it takes a village, or in this case, many teams, and many services. So we worked with our project manager, and we made a lot of tickets, and told people, hey, there's this beautiful guide that we created. It has all the information you could possibly need on how to deprecate PgBouncer, why we're doing it, and we're really selling it. It's gonna be the bright future if you use our homegrown proxy. But yeah, I've been on the other end of that. It kind of sucks to get that ticket. And not only that, but then people still need to remember, with all the other things that are going on in your day-to-day, you're gonna forget things. You kind of have to keep over-communicating, and a Jira ticket is not enough sometimes to get to people and get them to open up your guide and have all the answers to the questions. And in addition to that, as we are a platform team, we also have to make sure that the team is all bought in on actually supporting this, and there are no workarounds that, it's not you're doing your friend a favor because you're giving them access to the database with PgBouncer because they're cool and you like them. No, there's no exceptions, and that needed to be very, very clear. So yeah, the homegrown proxy is the path. And again, going back to my team mission, we want to make everything database related super easy for all of the different teams. Just kidding. We will ask you to prioritize different migrations. We will keep nagging you to do it, and maybe we'll say oops, sorry, clearly we're failing you. And it's not enough, right? This is, I said, we have a certain bar that we're holding ourselves to, and clearly here we're falling short on our mission. So how do we scale? First, we acknowledge that we have to do better. We're listening to our customers, and we're leaning into the different tools that we have at our disposal. So since as long as I've been here, we have been using Temporal in order to automate a lot of these things and do the operations per database cluster. We also built the Oyster CLI, which gives a simple interface on how to manage our different databases, and then also be able to have the different feature teams to toy around with it. And lastly, we have Claude, which that's where AI comes in. So for the last 3 years, we are able to automate provisioning, logical replication, Postgres user setup, rotating passwords, database migrations, being able to split the databases into different databases, set up all of these different features that we were building, and so on. So we kind of know what we're doing here, but not really at scale. And as I mentioned, we have the Orser CLI. The Orser CLI is really one of the ways in which we're trying to get away from GitOps. So rather than keep changing things in Git and having to go through the pull request process and all of that, we wanted to make sure that we can have all of our configuration on a blob storage. So we're able to interface with it more easily and actually have all of the different configurations roll out really quickly. So this is actually internally very well logged. But yeah, there's still some burden in having to go through each single data center and each single cluster to be able to edit all of these things. So now, finally, let's dive into a migration. So how it comes together in practice, right? Like, I'm just a platform engineer. I do not own any services here. So how am I doing this? I was vaguely aware of the service that is in charge of creating extracts, so that our analytics teams and other teams within Datadog can run a bunch of different data things that they like to do to analyze, I don't know, something like that, and be able to do that outside of Postgres. So all of these expensive queries don't really impact anything that happens on the customer side. So again, I'm not the owner of the service. I'm just trying to understand what does this service do? And I know that for this service, it uses this user called the extract user, let's say. Oh, and by the way, this is database monitoring, a Datadog product. And yeah, some of the people that have built this are here. So this is definitely a Datadog product that I use the most. But anyway, so yeah, from database monitoring and the query metrics, I'm able to see okay, so how is this user accessing the database, and what does it mean? What is the actual patterns? What is the actual load? What do things look like in the different data centers? And trying to understand this one service, trying to create a plan as to how does this product team actually migrate a service? So I went on and tried to do a migration myself, and rather than having a very broad guide on how to do it, I gave this team a very precise guide, handcrafted just for them, so that they can finally migrate all of their extracts and everything will work perfectly. And show them the pull request to create, show them the CLI changes to make. And I also try to say I went through this and I figured out probably the tough parts. So I'm thinking that it would only take another engineer about 2 hours to go through this migration process per extract. So some simple math. The number of extracts times the number of data centers, and then times the commands that you have to run, times the 3 pull requests that you have to make. So if we use real numbers here, it can lead to, with 20 extracts and 5 data centers, 40 straight hours of work. Not really fun work either. So, and also I'm bad at estimates, so really it wasn't 40 hours, it was probably a lot more. So I give this to that team, and the team comes back to me and says hey, can we get on a call with you so you can walk us through how to do this migration? We still have some questions. And I was like, what? I thought I documented it all. So we go on the call. It's scheduled for an hour. I'm oh, we're not gonna need the hour. It's gonna be really simple. So I'm doing it myself in the call, and halfway through the call, I'm holy shit. This is terrible. I am so sorry. I wasted your time. Let me get back to you. And I was genuinely shocked to see that despite of me spending all the time and doing it myself, the process still sucked. It was mostly because of that, right? Just keep doing the same stuff over and over again was quite awful. So yeah, I feel bad. So that's really where Claude comes in, right? Claude comes in where you want to understand the usage of something, you want to create a lot of config changes, you want to make sure that you're safely launching things, and in a repeatable way. So ideally, all of these manual things that I'm documented in the document that I gave this team shouldn't be run by a human. This is pretty much an excellent scenario for Claude. So once I understood the patterns and all of that, like, I manually made the changes myself, like from before. I gave it to Claude, or in this case, I was using Cursor, and shared the context of what I'm trying to do, and I said, take this extract and do the same thing that I did with this extract to this extract, and whatever, just make the PR, like, I don't care, like, keep doing that. And in the meantime, I was also in the terminal giving things access and figuring out like how to do that across all the different data centers. And I was pretty happy with this. But yeah, it's still a lot of coordination. Like all of these different extracts meant a different PR. Like we need to isolate the risk here of actually doing these migrations. So it is important that we do it safely and per different extract. So definitely the manual work of like having to deal with this didn't disappear. Like I'm still working through PRs and talking to teams and all of that. And one of the things that I also wanted to call out is that not only we're moving away from actually doing a migration, but then also we're able to finally deprecate the old way. So as you can tell, I'm very pro deprecating things and will go to extremes. So I want to be clear again about what we didn't automate. We didn't automate asking for pull requests. We didn't automate like actually investigating the use case. Like it took me some time to understand what I was looking at. And we also didn't automate all of the status updates and like giving like people information about like how is this actually going. And we also didn't automate like showing the human gratitude. Like I'm still making good connections with this person that I'm like, hey, I'm sorry I made some ridiculous ask of you. Thank you so much for not reviewing my PRs. Thank you for your patience. Hope you never see me again because I hope we're all done with all of these migrations. So yeah, there's a lot of things still to automate. And that's quite bad because that was just one service that I migrated, but there's 185 other services that are accessing the database in a way that I don't like. So yeah, it's not dealing with extracts is not the same chaos, right? So in order to figure out like what is it that I need to do and like what are the different methods that I can leverage in order to do these migrations, I first need to understand like how are these services, what is it that they're trying to access, like what is it they're actually trying to do. There's the most simple case ever, which is like a team owns a service, they own the data, they're just putting a proxy in between and they get their data, everything's beautiful, easy to reason about. Then there's services that need to connect to other teams' data. So maybe there's a microservice and then like that service can call another service and then access the data. Or maybe the team is like, I don't care, you can use our proxy and just connect to the proxy. And that's yet another way that we can access the data. So all of those like simple cases are things that like the product teams are very comfortable doing, right? Like even though it can be a pain, it's quite simple to do that following examples, and I didn't get too involved in that. But I definitely did get involved in the last one, which is services need to access multiple pieces of data across different domains. So back to the monolithic database, right? The monolithic database has gone down a lot in terms of like things that have migrated out of it, but it still exists. There's so many services that connect to it. There's so many services that can access a lot of different data that they don't really need. And a nice thing with Postgres is that you can join across all of these different domains. Even though we have separated them into specific schemas, we're still able to like do all the data joining. So in an ideal state, things look quite different. The ideal scenario, again, is like a single tenant database, the only performance service, and like all of the dependencies are at like the service level. No other team is touching your data. But, as we are trying to, at the end of the day, just stand up a new data center, like teams are not going to be able to get to this ideal scenario. It's unreasonable. And even if I use AI, like I'm not going to feel comfortable launching a service on behalf of another team and telling people, hey, do this thing, and do that for so many services that I wouldn't even know what to do with. So, yeah, we needed to figure out like what is a middle of the road thing that gets me what I want and maybe works in some ways. so back to my favorite database monitoring. Here, what I started to do was like looking at the different databases that I need to migrate like access to, looking at the different queries. And here I'm using like this query signature, so I don't show you our real queries, but I was actually looking at like the whole logs of Postgres queries. And I'm able to kind of understand and see patterns of like, okay, like usually I see that this table is getting joined with the users table. I'm sure everybody here has a users table, and so many things are joining to it, and also like a table to give information about like what access people have and all of that. So there's still a lot of joins that are happening across the different domains. So we cannot have just like each individual team trying to understand like all of that from like a Postgres level. They don't really need to know those things. So as we're able to like get that information, I was able to analyze the patterns. So what I did is I literally like downloaded all of the queries and gave it to AI and said like, for this table, like tell me the different things like that you're finding, like different patterns. And for example, one concrete example that I supported is we have 30 queries, and I fed it to ChatGPT, and I said, okay, you know what? Based on these queries, we have some common patterns, and we think that we can maybe build 6 different endpoints to support all of those if you were to build a service. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like I like that better than like all of these crazy joins that were happening and you know, direct access to the database. So yeah, this is exactly what I had typed in the internal document, saying like, yeah, I just used ChatGPT and like this is what it spit out. Didn't do anything fancy there, but I thought it was cool. So yeah, the solution that we landed on is like, okay, so rather than giving direct access to the database, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to create a proxy that can only access the tables that ChatGPT told me they actually need to access, and grant access to that proxy for the services that need to actually access that data. So it's not a free-for-all anymore, right? Like we have like a handful of services that need to access this very specific data, and maybe in the future we're able to have a service in between the customer service and our proxy. But since we're not there yet, this is kind of like, you know, that middle of the road example that I mentioned. We still have the monolithic database, but we have more granular access through the proxy. We have vetted each service so then the data owners can like really like hunt down the people and be like, yo, can you now migrate to my service when it's ready, when we finally build it next quarter. So certainly not the ideal scenario, far from the ideal scenario, but it still makes me feel better because we're able to deprecate a way of accessing the database that I do not want to do, or that I don't want to definitely not do in the new data center. So yeah, for these types of cases, I said, you know what, I'm not going to have all the teams go through these migrations. I'm just going to download the list of services from the logs and tell, again, Cursor, hey, can you find the service in the code base and like just give me a rough idea, just confirm like how the database is being used, and then like maybe you can add that to like the PR, like the pull request information, so teams understand like what I was trying to modify, and then I'm prompting the migration. And as you can see here, it's kind of like similar to like the document that I provided. It's a lot of different steps. Like if a single team had to deal with this, it was probably going to take them a while. And again, we're doing this across like hundreds of services. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I was able to like learn a lot from this exercise, and every time I was doing this, I was getting faster and faster. And while, you know, Cursor is in the middle of like dealing with all of my things to do the migrations, on the other side of my terminal, I'm like, okay, like let's grant access. And as we're granting access, the AI is like, you know, building something that is using to grant access. It is checking like, oh, okay, do the services have access to this proxy or do they not? And all right, let me actually then grant it if you want me to. And I obviously told it, please do it in a safe way, so that like, if I mess up in one data center, it's not gonna happen in all of them. So, yeah, that is a lot of what I did. And one of the cool things about this whole process is that we're able to take what AI is building in the background to achieve the goals that I have, and tell it to kind of like make a subset of that, like a skill based on like a subset of what it's trying to accomplish. And really what we're trying to achieve here is like, I know that some of these basic checks, like do these services have access to this database across all the different data centers? That's something that I have done manually over and over again. I had to like think about all the different data centers and like think about all the services, and it was a huge pain. So I knew that was like a little bit of something that I can take away and promote it into an AI skill. And again, this is a very simple example. There's many of these. My whole team is actually very good about like being able to promote all of these like chunks of what AI is doing in the background into skills that like anybody on the team or even like in the company can leverage without them even knowing. One of the nice things about this specific PR is that right after I merged it, the person said like, the person that owns that repository told me, hey, can you actually change the code owners? Like, I don't want to keep reviewing your team's skills that you're adding to this repo. So yeah, that felt kind of good. That, you know, my team is doing great and we're kind of, they can scale with our PRs. Okay, so I mentioned a lot about safety and like how do we make sure that we're launching these migrations safely. Because as exciting as AI is, like I'm sure you all read the news, at least like tech news, and know that things go wrong. And if you just let it be, then it will be and do whatever it wants. So all of these, I have to make sure that like the AI knows that I care about good practices, such as like adding feature flags. And for every single service, make sure that I'm able to roll out these migrations carefully, that I can actually determine which data centers I wanted to roll out. Because we're trying, again, to make it easy to have new data centers. We don't want to compromise all of the existing data centers that we have. We don't want to pretty much change something that's working perfectly, maybe with some tech debt in the background, but for our customers it's working perfectly. Why would we jeopardize that because I just want to do a migration, right? So that's like very clear to me that like in order for me to do this safely, I'm not gonna mess with the current stuff. That stuff that currently exists, all of that tech debt in the other data centers, it will live there for a little longer, and then I'll get back to it. Because the priority, again, is to make it to a new data center. And of course, yeah, I want to get to the world in which everybody's using our homegrown proxy and all the different data centers, and then when somebody says like, oh yeah, like I had issues with the proxy, I know that the only choice of what a proxy means is the homegrown proxy, but we're still far from that. Like we are still having to support all of the previous ways of accessing the data in the previous data centers. Again, because we want to make sure that we're doing this safely. And yeah, so this kind of crisis of being like, oh shit, we don't want to spend so much time like we did in Australia data center with the new data center that we might potentially build. Yeah, we don't want that, and we want to change that. And yeah, SOS, let's figure it out. So definitely, this whole process drove a lot of simplification, but there's still a lot of work to be done. One of the quirks of this is like I showed you that before we were tracking a lot of Jira tickets, and I still kind of have to track all of the PRs that I'm making, right? Like there's a lot of things that are happening all at once. And it's impossible for me to like remember everything that I'm doing for all of these services. And note down like, okay, that team decided to do it this way. This team actually told me that like they're deprecating the service, so let's not worry about it. And all of these notes. So constantly I'm like telling one of my agents like, okay, can you like get the latest status of this? Can you actually tell me what I should focus on next? A lot of the times it was like, I know that I have like 20 things that I can look at right now, but what are like the higher priority things? And it would tell me things like, oh, well, you actually left this PR in draft mode, and nobody has looked at it for days. I'm like, oh, okay, so I have to chase that person down. That's not automated. Cool. And kind of having like that cycle of having like an assistant telling me like what is it that I should do next, how should I prioritize my time, was like a really critical thing that changed the way that I worked. It is not glamorous by any means. Like I'm still like updating a CSV and like looking at a CSV or like asking the AI to tell me information about it. But it's still, I don't know, it's still like pretty cool. It does what I want. And yeah, it's all like things that in the past I would have had to manually just do and go update Jira tickets or update a spreadsheet myself. I really don't think that like 6 months ago I would have been able to like you do something like this. Like it definitely takes some time to like ramp up and like be comfortable and understand like what is it that I can actually leverage AI for. Like your way of using AI has to work for you, and you don't have to like retrofit what somebody else is doing or what the trend is in order for you to like get experience with it. Like actually make it do the things that you would normally do, but faster. So yeah, those things that used to take hours in terms of like granting access and like figuring out like which service has access to things and managing the different databases, now are taking minutes. And I'm sure that a lot of like the things that we are running, like all the different workflows that we're running and all of the different coordination that we're doing will take a lot less time. Because I remember the time when I first joined the company like 3 years ago, and in order to just set up one single database, I had to follow a doc that I had written with like 11 steps, and it took me a week just for one single database. And again, we went through the process of like ensuring that we were using temporal in order to automate all of that. And now I don't have to find out like when somebody needs a new database, they can just do it themselves. I don't care if you want to make 10 databases, you can go ahead and do it. I'm not going to be involved in that because I trust all of the different workflows that we have built to do that, and yeah, have everything within just a few minutes. One of the annoying parts about all of this though is that sometimes I do end up yelling at the agents and tell it like, that is absolutely not what I want you to do. I also use a lot of FFS, if you know what that means. Like I get really frustrated when it doesn't listen to me. So things are quite bad, but it's still a lot better than all of the manual stuff I was doing. So what else, right? Like as I mentioned, I'm in a platform team. I have exclusively pretty much only talked about things that I personally worked on, but there are additional things that the team is doing. And we want to make sure that like we are solving all and simplifying all of the different pieces of what hurt whenever we were setting up that previous data center. So making sure that we have as few different versions, so we don't have to keep maintaining all these different versions in the new data center. That we're not just like saying, oh yeah, well in the previous data center we used this version for this database, so let's just do that. No, like we don't want to get there. We want to make sure that things are as standardized as possible. So we are building all of the tooling to do that. And rather than like, for example, using like a cloud managed database, we're able to use our own Postgres and Kubernetes databases that we have been building for a long time, and has become the golden path. But there's still many databases that have to still run in those cloud provided databases because things are working fine. So we don't want to rock the boat if things are working just fine for customers. So yeah, the key here is really to converge to the golden paths and without shifting the pain to all of our peers, right? I don't want to ask people, hey, can you migrate all these services? And in an ideal scenario, all of the people that own these services will forget my name, don't know what team I'm on, and just forget that they even have a Postgres database because they don't have to worry about that. Like when you have a new data center, we just take care of that for you. So yeah, that's my dream. Become very not known that I can do these things. And yeah, again, this all happened with the same team, but like we have gained a lot of skills, and we have also codified a lot of skills. So I really love that part of codifying the skills. I talked a lot about cost at the top, so I want to make sure that I do touch on that too. Not just the operational costs and like the ways of like, okay, following golden paths. One of the key things that we're doing is being able to do multi-tenancy with our Postgres instances. So that means that rather than having like one team's data in one physical database, that we're able to actually leverage logical databases within a single instance. So that definitely does help with bringing down costs. And we're able to make this optional. So we're not forcing teams to do this, and we're also aware that not in every data center things will look the same. We kind of have to be comfortable with like simplification, but then also like how do we fit cost management with that. So there will be differences across different data centers for us. Another simple one is like revisiting defaults. At the proxy layer, we have done that per data center, but then also at the database layer, we definitely saw a lot of like resources that were not used. So that is another thing that we wanted to revisit, was just like pretty much like what is it that we send out when we send out something, even before data even exists there. And lastly, auto-scaling. So auto-scaling may seem again like an obvious solution, but we still have to implement that. And it is really important to get this right. Like at the end of the day, we do not want our customers or our peers to find out that like their database size changed or like some resources change, that we increase the number of max connections and all of that. We really do want to make sure that we can scale and downsize if needed, because whatever, like we dropped the biggest table on that database. So that is something that I'm really, really, really excited about, and will definitely help a lot with reducing the cost. Because again, not every data center will look the same. Not every data center has the same customers or like the same shape of data and so on. So yeah, these are some of the other things that I'm excited about. And hopefully, one day you will come here and you'll hear talk about these things in depth. So this all leads to this week, much to my delight, that I got very lucky that this talk aligned with the same week that they announced that we will have a new DC in the UK. So all of the work that we were doing is not just for fun. It's actually something that the company is doing, and I am extremely confident that things will look very different from how they looked when we stood up the Australia data center. There is no doubt in my mind that we will do a much, much, much better job. And yeah, we're not done. Whatever they decide to announce next, we're only going to get better. So, lessons learned. Obviously, there is, again, a lot of work to be done, but some of the things that I am able to take away from this experience and use is that, we need to automate things early and promote those skills. Because whenever you promote the skills through AI, other teams are able to use it, your peers are able to use it. For example, one of my peers built a skill to make it super easy to do a schema migration. So all I have to tell Claude is hey, can you just make some change here to optimize for this in this database? And it just makes that for me, and it follows all of the processes that we follow internally in order to change the database schema. We also need to ask less of customers and not more. We were failing on our mission, that is not a lie. So we definitely need to keep our promise. And it's kind of similar to how sometimes I'll tell Claude hey, can you do this for me? And then rather than doing it, it'll tell me oh yeah, just run these commands in order to create a pull request and do these other things. And I'm no, you do it. And I want the customers, or rather our peers building features, to say, no, you do it. And for me to not be oh shit, Oh yeah, I don't think I can. So yeah, that's definitely where I want to be. A big thing here is also getting feedback. I think that sometimes feedback is tough to receive because you're working so hard and like you think that you have built this amazing documentation or this amazing workflows that you're leveraging in order to do these things. But you know, when you put yourselves in the shoes of the customers, it still sucks. So definitely getting that feedback is critical in order for us to actually understand what it means to do things very smoothly. And finally, like, you know, you have to stay curious. And I am not going to tell you that I keep up with every single AI news because it's absolutely impossible. So really what I rely on here is my own team. Like within my team, I know that, you know, everybody has different sets of eyes and they read different things, and whenever things come up that are relevant, I trust the team to share that with me in the same way that I would do that for another peer. So it's definitely like a big part of like the culture of the team to share a lot of these things, and for example, use demo days in order to show people like concrete examples as to how they're using AI, or rather than having like the very robotic stand-up, actually showing people like, oh yeah, yesterday I was able to accomplish this task and this is what I ran, here's the prompt. Like we do a lot of prompt sharing and I really love that. The other thing is that we are lucky to be pretty co-located. You know, this is a cool space to work in. So sometimes in the middle of the incident, we're able to see exactly how a peer is leveraging AI to actually remediate or do investigations or using parts of our products such as like database monitoring to do that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So what is next for us? We definitely need to do a better job of detecting divergence. It is we need to make it easier to like identify these outliers as opposed to having a random engineer one day be like, oh yeah, this is funky, like maybe we should standardize this. So we're still too reactive, and I think that we can go a long way here in terms of like building automations to detect these anomalies or like these outliers and actually do the self-healing or like migrations, remediations themselves. I also want to make sure that I do like a smooth rollout. I think that like the reality nowadays is that we're still babysitting deploys. We're still asking people like, hey, can you just make sure that your service is looking okay after I flip this flag? And can you make sure also like to do that in another data center because like the load is different? All of these things, like they make me feel like I'm doing my due diligence, but it's definitely not the best use of my time. So this definitely is something that we need to change. I also need to scale myself. Like I want to make sure that anybody can trigger these migrations, or actually nobody, because AI will just do it. I want to be able to go on PTO for a week and say like, oh, you guys launched a new data center while I was gone? Well, wow, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, definitely want to get myself out of the job of having to do all of these things myself and ensure that it can just happen on its own in the same way that like, you know, I no longer have to go through that gigantic document to make a new database. And honestly, like, and lastly, is I don't know what else is next, because everything is changing. And if you told me like just 6 months ago that I will be giving this talk, I wouldn't have believed you, because I'm like, yeah, there's no way I did all of that in that small amount of time. So that is what I'm excited about. I'm excited that like we will be able to look back at this talk and be like, oh wow, that left a lot to be desired, and we're doing so much better now. And yeah, that's hopefully what's next for me. Thank you. I guess you have time for questions. Yep.
So I have a comment and a question. So I was very impressed because the team that I work on is we are remote and there's only 8 of us. And we are implementing skills. I make a skill for everything. This morning I was doing something for a backend project that we have. And I was very impressed that on an organization at your level, you guys are so deep into creating your skills, and the use of AI is like being promoted, whereas 6 months ago, a lot of companies were very hesitant, whereas now it's being promoted. There are little ups and downs, like the little hazard that happened on Monday. But my question is, if you could go back 12 months back, Fabiana, 12 months ago, without feeling too much department, where do you think you could have improved to make this process a lot smoother? Because I heard a lot of oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the skills that I always lean on, like actual human skills, not AI skills, is empathy, right? And one of the reasons that I became a platform engineer is because like having been on the product side, I know like that, you know, there is a lot of like sharing the same problems and somebody else needs to solve it. So I definitely rely a lot on my empathy, and I really wish that we didn't create all of those Jira tickets and ask all of those teams to do these migrations. And I am still sometimes asking people to do all of these migrations and care about these things. So I really wish that like we were able to bypass that, and like 6 months ago or like a year ago, I would be like, oh no, like there's no way that I'm ever gonna ask a product team to do a migration that only has to deal with something related to the database. And thank you for your comment. Yeah.
Could you comment to what extent did the work practices that you developed, either the human processes or the computational processes, depend upon the question of where your new data centers are located? And I don't mean that geographically so much as are they Datadog owned and operated places? Are they colos, cloud providers? Does that factor into these decisions?
I don't think so, if I understood the question correctly. I think that, like, for example, like, I did not know that the next data center was going to be in the UK for a long time. I think that where it does matter is, like, if there are certain regulations, like, for example, with GovCloud. Like, that is a place in which, like, we do need to automate additional things in order to release things that are, like, up to the certain standard that is expected from GovCloud. Yeah.
If you're able to, if we could ask a little bit more about the agents that you made, right? So did you have agents split up by like maybe like by service or like DB, and did you ever go further to do any like MCP or like A2H systems?
I did keep it really simple. So what I did is I ended up using Cursor like in many different windows and work on it by repo. So there's definitely different repos, and why that's important here is because the different repos sometimes use different languages. So we work a lot with Python and Go. So to use a Python example with the Go example was not ideal. So yeah, essentially doing it by repo helped me a ton. And yeah, I mean, I was still like picking things off myself, but yeah, that's how I decided to split it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe just sharing information that there is like a automated migration tool, so you put all the configuration like items like a host name or IP address or the name of the database and stuff, and then you just do dry run before you actually migrate, and then check all the errors. Are you using sort of tools like that, or you actually manually checking everything based on your document?
Sorry, can you repeat like?
So like, some company they have like automated migration tools that you just only put like configuration idea and then just do the dry run and do the real migration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand now. Yeah, so I think that we still rely a lot on doing things in staging for like, you know, our dry run. But I'm pretty sure that currently one of our interns is working on being able to do these sorts of dry runs, and not only in terms of migrations, but then also in terms of like how can I mimic different production workloads and see how it reacts after the fact if I make this change. So it is somewhere where we want to be, and yeah, if I remember correctly, that is what our intern is working on.
Can you speak to a little bit about the AI governance in the workflow? So, for example, you have these agents who can do certain things, but you have are you thinking about what it should not do, right? If it's touching the production, by mistake, do drift or hallucination, whatever it does, it may touch a production database by mistake. How does the company decide what you can use the tool? And then another question would be tool sprawl. You have so many different tools that you can play with, right? So what is the policy of Datadog in regards to these?
Yeah, I'll answer the last question first. So how are we deciding on tools? Like there's definitely a whole vetting process, and we're not just free to use whatever tool we want. Like there's definitely things get evaluated and get vetted, and then they like become available for us all to use. So it's definitely not a free for all. We take that stuff very seriously, and sometimes like if there are concerns around security, like it's just simply a no-go. We don't want to deal with that. And in terms of your first question around like how are we making sure that we're not doing production things and letting our agents just do whatever it wants and I don't know, rewrite a whole service or make those production changes and whatnot. Honestly, it's like we need to keep ourselves accountable. We always keep repeating to ourselves and coaching folks, and you know, there's a lot of human aspects of this, and a lot of it is the coaching and having that standard of being like, you know what, we're not doing that. And in fact, like one of my peers wrote like a whole document for for my team, and shared it around, and like that document now became like a company standard where everybody has access to that, and we are keeping ourselves accountable. And I think that at the end of the day, whatever your agent is running, it all will go back to you. So you need to be comfortable and you need to understand. And especially for Postgres operations against the database, whenever we're in the middle of an incident or whenever we are trying to remediate whatnot, there's still like a very clear expectation of like, you're telling somebody else on your team exactly what you ran. And you're able to explain why you ran that. So it is important that when we're dealing with production, that a human is still able to understand what they're doing and be able to say why they did it.
So you're saying it's a human in the loop. It's a human in the loop doing auditing, and at a certain period of time, at a certain threshold, you say, okay, someone has to take a look at this, and you own this, and you have to be able to make sure sign off on it, that type of...
Yeah, so for a concrete example, like if we're in an incident and, I don't know, I need to redo a replication slot or like set up replication again, sorry. If I need to set up replication again, I don't want to give my agent the information that it needs to set up a replication again. And that includes a password. I'm not going to do that. I will, however, tell my teammate that I'm pairing with, saying, hey, I'm about to do this operation. Can you make sure that this looks right before I execute it? Wait for the thumbs up, and we do it. It's, it's not fancy, but it is like the standard that we're holding ourselves up to until we feel more confident that, we can optimize that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, one of the future presentation, you were talking about being startup friendly. But last time I checked, there are a lot of data centers in Virginia. A lot of them are federal driven data centers. So I'm wondering, why aren't you looking at those markets? Why are you looking at these micro markets, which don't tend to have bigger scale than what the state of Virginia has, like the federal government has? Why are you looking at such lower level?
What do you mean by like which lower level?
Like startups, like as in why are you talking about like government data centers, government based? Like why is it? Right?
They're scaling their own database.
Like, do you think that would be more beneficial to go after government data centers or startups? I mean, that's just my basic.
Yeah. So we're to be clear, like all of our databases that we're operating with are not dealing with like the databases that customers use within their own systems. It is just to operate Datadog itself. So it's all Datadog features that live in that data that powers that lives in the Postgres databases. We're not working with individual startups or anything like that to host their data through our Postgres instances. Yeah.
Early on, you shared kind of your experience of requesting a new database, a form with 11 steps. and that part of the platform's team goal is to minimize that friction. Considering that databases are often not stateless, right? They hold lots of data, and that getting a database was often kind of the hard part in many systems because app servers can come and go, they're stateless. Are you finding the proliferation now that you've made it easier to have databases, you have many more databases as a result? And is that a problem? Are you worried about having too many?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, like we are very cost conscious. At the end of the day, like, you know, we're all investors in the company, and like our customers also feel that, you know, like in the pricing, right? So we're definitely very cost conscious, and we make sure that like not only are we automating the provisioning, but we're also automating decommissioning. And like as much as like we want people to try out Postgres and see if it works and all of that, we try to make it easy to make that call very early on, rather than like, oh, I made this whole feature with Postgres and then I decided to go somewhere else, but let me just keep operating and I'll have all that data there. Like we very early on, in order to support like hackathons and stuff like that, we made a playground. So folks are able to try what it feels like to work with Postgres before they actually commit to it. So we're not dealing with like dangling databases that are not used, and like what we actually are operating are things that are necessary to keep the company going. But yeah, that is a big piece of cost cutting and ensuring that we're not getting paid for a database that nobody's talking to. That's really annoying, and I've definitely been there before.
So we're about time for one more question.
Right, one more question. Maybe the main question will be for you guys. Is anybody else going to Germany? No, okay. Well, maybe somebody's coming to New York, right? When is the New York?
September 30th?
October 2nd.
September 30th to October 2nd. I should know this.
All right, September 30 to October 2nd. I'm sure some of us from Datadog will be there. I will not give the same talk, and maybe you'll hear more about, I don't know, things like multi-tenancy and stuff like that there. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, great questions, and yeah, thank you so much.
You got that second? Okay, thank you, Fabian, again for an excellent talk. All right, so quick housekeeping. First, big thank you to Datadog for hosting. Now, as is New York City Postgres user group tradition, we always ask that you clean up after yourself, you make sure things are nice. We love to be invited back here, so please make sure that we are allowed back here. We'll be back again in May. I believe we do have a location. The speaker will be announced soon, and we look forward to seeing all of you there. We need to be out of here by 8 o'clock, so you don't have to go home, but you can stay here. Thank you. Have a great night.